Tri-Cities. It's Friday at 9 o'clock, so it's time for Coffee with Karl. I'm Karl Dye from TRIDEC, the Regional Economic Development Agency. Today's topic is our local labor market and what's being done in the labor market with our partners from Workforce Development to see what are some programs and strategies that we can all work on together to come out of this economic impact that we're in. So it's my pleasure to introduce on my left, I'm not sure how it's showing up on everybody else's screen, Tiffany Scott, who is the CEO of the Workforce Development Council. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning, Karl. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thanks for
Happy
joining us.
to be here.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna have a great conversation this morning. And on my right, again, I don't know how it shows up on everybody else's screen, we have Ajsa Sulic from the Employee Security Department. She is our regional economist. Good morning, Ajsa. Oh, yeah, we can't. I think you might be on mute.
Good morning,
it's okay.
Karl.
It's the Zoom world we're in. We've all, I've done it many times.
Yes.
Don't worry about it.
Me too.
Yeah, it does happen. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. So we will get kicked off with our official Coffee with Karl thing that we do. We talk about coffee or mugs, and I don't know if you can see the glare on that. Yeah, so this one is Tri-Cities of Washington. This is a few years ago. Our building partners, the Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visit Tri-Cities and TRIDEC, went through a branding exercise, and kind of like the graphics and some of the fonts and stuff are what we all used. And so I think this is just like a generic mug. I don't actually have an official TRIDEC mug, although I do have some old ones that I use. So I just wanted to use this one to talk about partnerships. You know, we have great partnerships with TRIDEC, with the Workforce Development Council, Employment Security Division, and all the other WorkSource, and you know, all the other agencies that you guys all work with. And you know, I think in these times, especially with COVID, how we can all work together is really critical. So yeah, so looking forward to a good conversation today. Let's go with Tiffany. What do you got for a mug or coffee or any story you want to share with us?
Okay, I don't know if you're going to like this one, Karl, because I've heard you prefer the Cougs, but I have my my University of Washington coffee cup, and our youngest graduated from the U, and he is our first Husky in the family. So one of the things when he went into his post-secondary education was really just supporting him. So we do have a lot of Cougs. I'm an Eagle alum and Wildcats in the family. He was our first one to really get connected to the University of Washington. So I'm representing the U today with this cup, and it fits very well into my Keurig machine. And I can't tell you if this is my third or fourth cup of coffee this morning. It's been a long week, but again, it's great to be here. Thank you.
That's great. And full disclosure, I have to say that I grew up as a Husky fan. I have a brother-in-law that played football for him. Yeah. So when I was, you know, in junior high and high school, we used to go to Husky games and stuff. And I don't talk about it often because it's so traumatic, but in the early 80s, the Cougars beat the Huskies in Pullman in the Apple Cup. And they tore the goalpost down and hauled them down the hill and threw them in the creek. And I was there. It was about 20 below, but it was tough to be a Husky that day. And yeah, but yeah, it's always good that we have such historic and healthy in-state rivalries. So thanks.
Yeah, and just phenomenal institutions in the state of Washington. I mean, you can't go wrong. You really can't.
That's exactly right. That's right. Ajsa, how about you? Do you have a coffee story or mug or anything you want to share with us?
I am not a coffee drinker. I'm actually a tea drinker, and I should have brought my Boise State cup. I was there at Boise State during the high area of football, and Chris Peterson was over there leading the team, and now he's in the state of Washington, which is where we are fortunate to have him here. But my cup of today is Minion.
Nice.
Oh,
they're fun.
They
are fun.
One of my favorite cups. It's very large and it holds quite a bit of tea for me every morning. And I drink caffeinated tea. It gives me enough buzz to go through the day. But the story of this is that my kids saw Minions, and the last song in the movie, Bananas,
Yeah.
It stuck with us, and everywhere we go, if we see bananas or anything Minion related, we go bananas for it. So I thought this environment and time for it really, everything's kind of bananas. And figuring out where we are at, where we're heading, and what's happening. So very fitting for me, especially the data analysis and what I do.
I think that's a great, and we might have to rename our time together today the Bananas episode. A great way. And
Go bananas.
I just have to say, as I talk about, being a Costco Coug that I've brought up enough times, because I'm actually an Idaho Vandal, I'm just going to let that whole Boise State thing go. And not even just, I'm just going to let it go, because here I am in Washington and I don't need to worry about that. Okay, well, let's, as I said, I am new to the Tri-Cities. I've been in this job for 6 months, and I'm just loving it. I mean, even with these times and the impacts that we're all seeing and stuff, my family and I just enjoy being here in the Tri-Cities so much. So let's just start off, since I am new, and maybe just start with descriptions about what each of you do and in your departments do as it applies to labor and workforce. And let's start with Tiffany with Workforce Development Council. Can you kind of give us the lay of the land with Workforce Development Council, and then even talk about kind of the one-stop shop approach with ESD and workforce, and how y'all work together?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to, and I'll try not to get too technical because the majority of my funding is federal, so there's a lot of acronyms and things such as that. So let's see, about 6 years now, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act was passed. It was a bipartisan piece of legislation, and in there embedded is that each state in the United States needs to have a comprehensive American Job Center system. So what that did was it had the governor analyze what we have in Washington and say, where does it make sense to stand up opportunities for businesses and employers to connect? So through that process, Governor Inslee did designate Benton-Franklin counties as a workforce development area. So my responsibility and my team's responsibility at the Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council is to make sure that we operate a certified comprehensive one-stop center in our region. And as you know, you've heard some of the lingo, it is branded as WorkSource Columbia Basin. So that is one of the physical facilities that we are responsible for. And in conjunction with that, we have a new center. It's called TC Futures, where youth and young adults can re-engage into the workforce system. Usually we serve about ages 16 to 24 at that center. So looking at our access points in the community, traditionally it is done through those two centers. And we have had to pivot exponentially in order to accommodate virtual services for our job seeker and employer customers during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm very happy to let you know that it is going well in the sense that our team of professionals is doing anything and everything that they can to serve our community during these trying times. So through my role, I have to really just make sure that, the needs of job seekers and employers are met. So I have a collaborative partnership that I organize through a memorandum of understanding at WorkSource Columbia Basin. And that is where big powerhouses like Employment Security sit, Labor and Industries, the Department of Voc Rehab, OIC of Washington, our Title I Contractor Career Path Services, Columbia Basin College. So, what is really seen as the the idea of partnership, we have been walking this talk for a long time. And it's at this juncture that I'm so grateful that we are strong in our local partnerships. So that's the WorkSource Columbia Basin system. And then we also have with TC Futures, a strong collaborative working relationship with Educational Service District, also an ESD, 123, where we do offer the employment and training services as well as educational services, even now through GED testing at TC Futures. So it's definitely something that we are cognizant of as far as the situation we're in now, and then how do we, or how might we obtain resources to kind of compensate for the lack of resources that households are suffering from right now as COVID-19 is still so prevalent. Yeah. And then important to note, and I do want to thank Karl. Karl does serve as a board member. I have a 21 board of directors that are very willing and come to the table to have the tough conversations and have some really strong dialogue so that we can, as a system, do the best that we can to respond. So I wanted to thank Karl for your service on my board. It's strange that I know you're new. You and I also sit on the Workforce Washington Economic Development Association board, and we meet, but we have yet to meet in person. So that's one day, that's my goal, is to like shake your hand or do the quick elbow introduction. So totally. We'll get there.
That's right. Thanks, Tiffany. That was great. That was a great overview, and I have a lot to learn, and my goal is to continue to try to learn and be a good board member for you, because you guys really play a critical part. We'll get into that in a little bit, talking about the need for talent and how that's obviously going to shift with the bananas time that we're into. And with the bananas comment, I'll shift to Ajsa. Can you tell me, as a regional economist, Ajsa, like what's your role, and what are the different data sources that you track in general, as far as I think the economy, and then specifically on like labor market data that you track?
Yeah. As you said, I'm with the Employment Security Department, and Tiffany mentioned we are partners with Workforce Development Council here at Benton-Franklin, but throughout state of Washington, we are partners with all 12 Workforce Development Councils. Our vision as Employment Security Department is to have nation's best and most future-ready workforce for opportunities for all. And we stand with the mission that we provide our communities with inclusive workforce solutions that promote economic resiliency and prosperity. We do focus on value in investment in our people and workforce at Employment Security Department, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But integrity is very critical for us, and especially these are very trying times for all of us, and how to transition workforce and how to serve the communities and everybody, and how to ramp up to unprecedented levels of demand for our services throughout the state. Employment Security Department has multiple units, that being unemployment insurance distribution, unemployment tax collection, employer services, worker services, job services, and so forth. And then this fourth and fifth unit is labor market division. In labor market division, we comprise of a team that's one-stop shop for all comprise state and regional economists. And there are 6 regional economists around the state, and we have many economists in our headquarters that do economic analysis, research, and many other collect data and analyze data for employment conditions, economy, job markets, and workforce. We try to provide this on a timely basis, monthly, quarterly, as needed, ad hoc requests, and so forth. This, we believe and we strive to provide this data in most timely and accurate manners to all stakeholders to make sure that this decision and program evaluations and research that people are doing for their own businesses and organizations is made on right and resourceful facts that are not skewed by any opinions. And we value stakeholders' requests and feedback to anything that we can provide to support them through all this labor market information. We can go from wage analysis to employment analysis, population analysis. We have a lot of agricultural survey programs, occupational and wage survey programs, and we rally on all individuals that live here for a population and workforce analysis, as well as for all businesses in the state of Washington to give us feedback on all of those so we can provide these reports out to communities. And we do value confidentiality. We try not to disclose anything that's not supposed to be disclosed, but still being useful. If we don't find the data that's not disclosable, it's not useful. It can be useful for right decision making for the future of all businesses and all organizations in our communities. So I am in the community to disseminate this information, to provide this information to you, whatever media that is, like presentations like this, meetings, gatherings, or email and phone conversations. Whatever works for you works for me, and I'm available through any media sort to do that. And this shift in style of work is not unknown to me, but I have noticed that transitioning from in-person presentation to online presentation was a little bit challenging in the beginning. So I can just vouch for everybody out there. We are all in this together. It doesn't matter what kind of job you do or what kind of business you lead. A transition and a change in technology and moving forward with what's coming up to us is very critical.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that overview and taking a look even at the way you guys work and especially with the language about inclusivity, diversity, equity, and some of the surveys that you do. Ajsa, let's stay with you. And can you give us just very general numbers around impact of COVID? I mean, obviously, I think we're all kind of conditioned to look at unemployment rates as an indicator of economic health and things like that. And I think especially with these times with the additional federal dollars that are running out today. And I do have to give a really quick update for our audience. If you have any questions for Tiffany or Ajsa, you can use the question and answer box if you're on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook Live, you can ask a question in the comments and we'll get to you. So we want to kind of run through some of our overview stuff and then get into some questions. So I'd encourage everybody to, as you're listening to our information today, to give us some questions so we can get into those. So yeah, so Ajsa, sorry, I forgot to throw that in there when we first started, but yeah, how are we doing on say unemployment rates? How does it compare to the past? And then what are some other indicators that kind of, from a statistical or data point of view, give us a good idea of how much are we being impacted by COVID?
Yes. So March came in roaring with all the changes with COVID impacts, starting with I-5 corridors and a lot of closures. March 16th is really when we locally noticed a lot of changes in our labor force, a lot of layoffs and closures with recreational facilities, restaurants, and basically service delivery, direct service delivery businesses. So with that, April came in with big numbers. We lost around 14,000 jobs locally, but at the same time, we lost a significant number of people from labor force into the unemployment. Unemployment, for these statistics, we count anybody who's 60 years and older and actively engaged in the labor force, either by being employed or unemployed. And during that time, we saw unprecedented numbers of people going into unemployment, applying for these unemployment benefits. Around April 18th, 15th and 18th, individuals who were self-employed also were able to apply for these benefits as well. So during this time period, increased number of individuals
Oh, Ajsa, I think. Yep.
No.
Yep. Still can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There you go.
Okay. So we had over 40,000 people initiate their initial claims during March, April, and May. We are slowing down right now. We are just about 900 initial claims last week for both counties. But just as of June, latest unemployment numbers, unemployment rate is 9.1. May unemployment rate was about 13%. Last time we were over 10% unemployment rate was actually 2011 during layoffs from Hanford. That was the largest layoffs we had, or number of people declining in jobs since 1995. So this was dramatic, over 13% unemployment rate, but we have steadily decreased in June to 9.1% unemployment rate. And now we have a very positive thing going on for us. Local economy with seasonal factors of agricultural industry contributed to increase in labor force. Our labor force increased by 3.4% over the month, but then at the same time increased about 2.3% over the year, contributing to that more engaging labor force coming through our area for agricultural activities, but then as well because of our younger population coming into the labor force as well and getting engaged. Employment over the month, they increased by 7.1%, so from May to June. Over 9,400 jobs, resident jobs were added. Of that, about 3,400 of those were non-farm jobs that were added to local community. But over the year, we are still at 2.1% resident labor force employment decrease. So we're still in very high unemployment rates, 23.3% decrease over the month, but over the year, we are 85% higher in unemployment. Around this time last year, we were about 2,500 people on unemployment, estimated unemployment. This time we are about 14,200. So there's a lot going on in labor force, a lot of shifts, a lot of seasonal factors, different industries. And one thing we are fortunate is that we are in center of the regional economy, where we see a lot of people come in for the jobs and also see a lot of people go out for different jobs, and contributes to diversity of our industries that are located within two county borders.
Just a quick question on that. So the decrease in unemployment from May to June from 13% to 9.1, do you attribute that to some businesses being able to reopen and people going back to work? Is that driver?
Yes. Most of the decrease that we have noticed in June was coming from agricultural labor force going back to work, as well as leisure and hospitality, hotel, motel settings that were able to start opening up in June, and some of the revamping and delivery services and food services. Over 1,500 people went back to jobs in food services. That was very significant, but we have large increases in jobs for labor force that are located here and elsewhere in construction and manufacturing for local communities. So those two industries are in seasonal uptick and their jobs, and they're contributing definitely to driving down the unemployment rate for this time of the year.
All right, thank you. Tiffany, from Workforce Development Council, and then like you described the one-stop shop approach, how has COVID affected your teams, in your work? And you talked about a pivot before, so you kind of give us just that overview of COVID, like maybe some projects you were working on before, and then what you've pivoted to now, just that overview of the impacts.
Gosh, where to start, Karl?
It's a pretty broad question.
Woo! So I will say that we, a year ago, we're very fortunate to have our partnership change from more of a tower technology to laptops with docking stations. So the fact that that happened really helped us shift from a physical presence at the two offices and then the council with my team into a new world of work where we're working from home. So I know that not everybody was fortunate to have that experience, and there are people in the community that don't have the technology that they need. So I do want to communicate now. I did see that the email, or excuse me, the web addresses did pop up in the chat for the community to see, but I do want everyone to know TC Futures, if you're 16 to 24, please feel free to give us a call there at 509-537-1710. Anytime during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If there is a need to leave a message, you'll receive a call back within 24 hours. So to comment, that center is closed to the public as far as the physical facility. However, the services are still being rendered virtually. So sometimes there's some mixed messaging there. So we just really want everyone to know that you can still receive services. There's a few nuances with TC Futures. We're very fortunate to get certified as a GED testing center. So there could be some follow-up one-on-one appointments, but the focus is not to open our public-facing physical facilities until we as a community are in phase 3. I believe firmly that the health and safety of the team, the practitioners, the skilled individuals we have providing this essential work is important, and we want to contribute to the economic recovery. However, we want our team to be healthy and safe and be able to do that in a very intentional way. So flipping over to WorkSource Columbia Basin, you can call that line at 734-5900, leave a message on the general prompt, and usually within 1 hour, you as a community member can receive a phone call back. So I do just want to thank, gosh, I think we're at about 60 professionals in our system that we work with and provide the direct client services and leadership. We have been able to, since the beginning of March, look at our available pot of resources and then say, where are the gaps? What are we going to need? So the team and I, we worked diligently through some statewide partnerships and have been awarded 2 additional funding streams. We have a disaster recovery grant that is being deployed through our WorkSource Center that will help people engage in subsidized employment to actually give back to the community in things like working at a food bank to help fill that need. Then we also have an additional almost $600,000 coming in through a grant that we successfully secured for employment recovery. So when we're looking at, the 24,000 plus people in our community that were receiving the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, they can now, if their unemployment insurance is not what it needs to be to run their households, they can call us at WorkSource or TC Futures and say, I need to engage, I need to get busy and really find some employment opportunities that will help me become successful.
So would that be something that, if someone unfortunately is on unemployment insurance right now and the federal subsidy that's been there up till today goes away, would that be something, Tiffany, that they could contact you about and maybe get some more information and it might help bridge that gap or help them find a job?
Absolutely, Karl. We want people to know that we're available, and anyone that has received unemployment insurance can qualify for what we call a dislocated worker program. And we have really some strong partnerships and contractors within our workforce development system here locally that has received money from us, and they can deploy the resources to the individuals that need it at this time.
Okay, that's great. Well, we do have one question that came in from Facebook for Ajsa on the data side. As you know, we all look at numbers. We all appreciate your data, Ajsa. But the question relates to this question saying that they believe unemployment's about equal between the two counties. Is unemployment by industry about the same between the two counties, or are there some different industries in each county with higher unemployment number? You talked about, you know, ag and the seasonality of ag, and then even manufacturing and stuff like that. So do you track both counties together, Ajsa, or do you break them down into you know, industries by county, and then what does that look like on the unemployment side?
So what we publish is actually unemployment rate by county, metropolitan statistical area, and now we have unemployment rates for the cities that have population over 25,000
okay.
and workforce development councils. For our metropolitan statistical area, Benton-Franklin counties are together, and for workforce development council is the same. Workforce development area, it's the same, two counties together. So there, if you're looking at the numbers, there should be the same. So we don't have the statistics for industries. We don't publish that by industries. It will be very hard to do that, but just logistically looking at it, yes, different industries have different unemployment rates. And they would vary from season to season, from what's happening right now and things like that. And for our seasonality factor, when we look at it historically, retail trade and agriculture are the largest contributor to our non-seasonally adjusted unemployment rate variance throughout the year. And then to take out that seasonal factor, we look at over the year average annual unemployment rate. For right now, for both of the counties, because of all these different factors playing big role, I believe both of them are at 9.1, if not 9.1 for Benton and 9.2 for Franklin County unemployment rate. Okay,
so really very close between the two.
Very close, and we really see that. And we actually, another fact is that we really see that we are below state unemployment rate. We tend to be about 2% higher in unemployment rate than the state, but this time around in June, we are below a state unemployment rate as we stand.
Would you generally attribute that to the percentage of our local workforce and economy that's driven by agriculture that has been declared essential, and so the workforce has been working, and that, you know, there are crops that need to be harvested and processed? Is that so? Normally that would kind of bump us to a higher rate versus, you know, a full statewide economy, but in this case it actually brings us to a lower rate because they're actually still working versus service industry people in the west side or something like that. Is it kind of like that?
Yes, well, so agriculture seriously played a big role in June. We have large cherry harvest that happens, and we have a lot of labor force that come in, and that labor force immediately is employed, and contributing to that increase in labor force and decrease in number of unemployed individuals. But at the same time, health of industries, diversification of our industries, other than clothing retailers and sit-down food services, has been really good. And these industries have been hiring to complete the projects, for example, in construction that they started before COVID, and now we are open to start new construction other than the completion of this already in progress projects. So just in that, we have that. And then we have food manufacturing and other manufacturing industries that are not being impacted by COVID, and they are hiring and looking for the workforce at the same time. So we have diversity of these industries, including healthcare, financial services, real estate, for example, that are contributing to that decrease in unemployment rate, and us being below not statewide unemployment rate, and 9.7% is right now for statewide, and us at 9.1. So we are one of the few areas in the state that we had actually gain in non-farm and gain in total resident labor employment at the same time.
That's great. So I mean, maybe the takeaway is that because our economy was so strong, we were growing so quickly in industries like construction and food processing and ones like that, that we've been able to continue some of that momentum even through the COVID impact, that is actually adding jobs to our local economy.
Yeah.
That's great. I might just add, and it's anecdotally, but we have seen some numbers on sales tax by county, and it's interesting because you can see sales tax reductions differences in between the two counties. So I think more of an impact in Benton County than Franklin. And I think that it relates to, where are the industries that have been the hardest hit, like hospitality and, food service and ones like that, Franklin County, at least in the last report, had maintained its sales taxes, being another indicator along with labor and unemployment of, what are some of the job impacts being, or what are some of the economic impacts. And that does kind of show that split in between the two counties, just, really back to this question.
It truly is. Retail sales taxes, and they kind of fall a little bit behind in date, but permits, housing permits, and construction permits are some of the leading indicators of where things are heading. And these retail sales tax are critical for infrastructure and operation of local entities. And we, at both Benton-Franklin counties, being very fortunate to have, over the past 5 years, very healthy and growing retail sales tax collection. And most of these retail sales taxes are coming from large construction projects and large automobile sales, RV sales, and so forth. And we have some of that coming from clothing and general merchandise stores. But when we look at, in regards of employment, these general merchandise clothing stores contribute a great deal to retail sales tax. But now these supermarket style retail stores that haven't closed, because they're providing multi-services, food services, and clothing sales and camping opportunities for everybody. They're still operational, and they're hiring individuals, and they're able to contribute to that sales tax collection over the past 3 months since the COVID has hit. That's
great. Just want to remind everybody, if you do have any questions for Tiffany or Ajsa, we'll use the question and answer box on Zoom, and then if you're on Facebook Live, put it in the comments and we'll get to you. So Tiffany, what do you see, from a workforce development council and really the role that you and your partners play so critical to us? Because, in economic development, if we are working with a company to grow, if we're working with a company to move into the Tri-Cities, talent is so critically important. What do you see as some trends coming out of COVID? Have you seen like some of these grants that Workforce Development Council has secured and is putting into work? What do you see, or what are your kind of predictions coming out of this? And then, I think from the community aspect, what can we think about or expect or even collaborate on to help? Are there some things that we can all think about or work on that it's going to help employ more people and bring us out of the COVID impact as quickly as possible once we get to some reopening phases? Any thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, what it really comes down to is identifying who will not be able to return to their previous occupation. And then there's a gap there. What skills need to be upskilled for that individual, or new skills obtained in order for them to be gainfully employed. So it's great that we have a consortium model within WorkSource Columbia Basin where we have all of the titles of the law that we work under represented, and one of them is Columbia Basin College. And then we also work closely with WSU Tri-Cities, because it could be that there might be some new certifications that need to be upstarted in order to meet the demands of this new normal that people are talking about. We also want to really respect the fact that our community is growing. So I do want to give a plug for the trade still, and the apprenticeship programs that are available. They are wonderful opportunities for people to get involved, and really in a non-traditional sense as well. We would love to see more women in the trades. So there's just this not internal partnership that goes on. It's also the stakeholder relationships that are so crucial, even more now than ever. So when we were able to successfully obtain an additional over $1 million for this current year, we didn't do that alone. We did that in collaboration with the other workforce development councils across the state. So locally, having people like you, Karl, on my board, and Lori Matson from the chamber. So we need to really understand that we're going to get more resources to our community to serve our job seekers and employers if we do have a real strategic focus and are able to bid on resources and obtain those resources to keep our community viable, and then really approach recovery and be part of the solution. So I just can't tout enough how important partnerships are. And then too, on the flip side, I think that, knowing that this isn't a normal meeting, like if we would have had this meeting 6 months ago, we would have had a different feel to it, right? So I do, as a leader in workforce development and in the Tri-Cities, I do want to say, let's keep masking up. A lot of what we want to do for recovery cannot happen until phase 3 and potentially even phase 4. So Tri-Cities, this is a beautiful place to live. I've been blessed to call it my home for the majority of my life. Let's just, show each other how much we do care and get through this virus together. And then two, we're in a voting year, and and two, also it's interesting that it's 100 years since the 19th Amendment when women got the right to vote. Just years and years of work that went into that in order for us to have that opportunity. So a lot of the resources that we receive locally are contingent upon who's in leadership positions and power in government. So, just encouraging people to get out and vote, analyze your choices, and just make the best choice that would represent you. I can't say that enough, because like I said, trying to diversify from the federal funding stream, but a lot of the resources I do get as a quasi-governmental entity, it does impact, when different people are in leadership roles.
That's a great point. I wanted to ask you, Tiffany, about one of the things and this was great, great programs, and really appreciate your shout out on masks, because obviously this is the thing that we can all do, that we can't get to reopening our businesses. We can't get to those future stages. We can't get to having large gatherings until we all work together to bring down that rate. And remember that it's not just at work where you need to wear a mask. You need to not gather socially with people that you haven't been around, outside of it, unless you're masked up and practicing social distancing. So that's a great point. But I did want to ask about the trades, and if you could just give a plug, for skilled trades. And I think, generally what we've all seen in a couple generations is that, that there aren't as many people going into the skilled trades, but the demand for skilled trades, no matter if it's, pipe fitter, that works in a federal program locally, or if it's a plumber or a machinist, or, I mean, these skilled trades. Can you just talk about that? Because I think it's important that we talk, especially when we talk about education, that, education and training as it relates to young people's futures and jobs. Can you give a plug for skilled trades? Because I think it is a really critical component of our local workforce for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a daughter of a retired carpenter. My fiance is an electrician. So I will champion the trades as much as I do champion post-secondary education. What we do need to realize is that, especially as you look at the different generations that are coming into and out of the workforce, we're going to be hitting what people have called the silver tsunami here if we're not already in it. So let's leaders, the counselors in the high schools, the mentors for our youth and young adults, let's let them know how viable and important the trades are, and the fact that we need all of them to run efficiently together in order for our community to grow and then stabilize. And if you choose to go into, a GED path into a trade, or a GED path into a 2-year certificated program or a 4-year degree, if you go into, a running start program at CBC, your 4-year degree, and then all the way up to your master, they're both, it's okay. Like, every person is unique, and there shouldn't be the stigma around one path or the other, because at the end of the day, every individual that resides here in Benton-Franklin counties is contributing to the whole. And it's only going to make us more successful, more viable. And, also something to point out is the remediation. Sometimes it does get intimidating. There's a strong skill set that you have to be successful in a trade. And a lot of that does associate with math. So know that if you are a young person and you're just not quite sure if you could do this or not, call TC Futures. Let's get you talking to a very engaging practitioner that can walk you through your options, and let's do that together and weigh the paths that you have in front of you, and just make it something, a choice, and then a positive potentially outcome in the future.
That's great. Thanks. That was a great overview of the skilled trades. And then I think the thing that you said before that's really critical in this whole conversation is skills. I mean, even like with Ajsa talking about the trends that we've seen here just within the COVID times, that, there are a growing number of jobs in other industries, but sometimes that gap are the skills. And so, thanks for bringing all your partners up. We've tried to list some of those in the chat box for anybody that's listening, so that they can have access to those resources, because those are, whether they know somebody that might be unemployed, and maybe how do they get the skills that are going to connect them to these growing industries. But maybe just quickly shift into Ajsa. Tiffany just talked about the silver tsunami. So as it relates to unemployment, Ajsa, and I know this is, so just thinking about COVID outside of the larger trend, but what are kind of the demographics of age in unemployment? I mean, does unemployment in COVID times follow the same demographic trends throughout our workforce, or are you seeing, greater unemployment in different age groups in COVID times?
So we are very fortunate that we are able to publish a lot of these numbers now on weekly basis because of such a large numbers coming through the system. That's not positive in a way that we would like it, but to look at these demographics in regards of age, this is hitting a prime working workforce big time. 25 to 45 and 50 is the big hit for all unemployed individuals right now. Usually we would tend to see larger youth or larger older workforce and unemployment statistics, but this time it's that prime working workforce that's being hit big time, especially in these industries that require that workforce to be a little bit more experienced, some skills developed previously and so forth. But for going in the future, our local area, Benton-Franklin counties, are very fortunate to have one of the youngest labor force in the state. And it's not due to larger concentration of educational institutions, bringing in students and so forth, like that, you would see that in Whitman County and other concentrated educational institution areas. But for us, it's that population growth. In Franklin County, over 25% of all population is 24 years and younger, and these individuals are daily getting into that 16 years and older mark for labor force statistics to be counted in. And for general, both counties have that luxury of new workforce coming in due to population growth, not only for incoming migrating workforce and contributing to that right now, to that workforce being impacted the most, that prime working workforce, 25 to 45 years of age.
Okay, thank you. I had another question that came in, and maybe you can both contribute on this, but it talks about unemployment and accessing services. So with ESD, how does an newly unemployed person access those services? And the question relates to being able to go online. If the person isn't able to access online services, are there people they can talk to at least remotely on the telephone? And Ajsa, can you comment on that? And then Tiffany, you might have some other thoughts or ideas. I know some of the other things, like I know TC Futures and some of the other ones you talked about, that if you leave a message, they'll call you back within 24 hours. But what's the access? Is it all online? Do you have to have a computer to access it, or how does that work? Can you talk to a live person, at least on the phone?
So if you are newly unemployed and looking to apply for unemployment benefits, all of the resources are available online. And the best way is to do it through online service. You put in your information, set up USAW accounts, and go through that system. If you have issues, there's phone numbers that you can call in and get service. For this time around, it's being the phone lines in the unemployment system being overloaded. And to get somebody, it's not going to be 1 or 2 hours. You have to keep calling continuously. And our system is being ramped up to greater service, to magnitude of levels of service and individual servicing. And there's a lot of individuals that transition to do unemployment benefits, especially new benefit claimant or initiating claims individuals. So everything that you need to know is on esd.wa.gov. On our homepage is changed basically to tailor to how you can apply and what to do in what state you are in of those applications. Another thing is to bring up those individuals that have had issue in applying, or their accounts are locked up, or they have issues coming through the phone and reaching anybody for support. The customer service individuals who are doing educations are working really hard and trying to call back all those individuals that have issues. And they're working really hard, and the hope is that by July 30th and 31st, which is today, that we had the majority of all these cases, which was very significant, over 80,000 statewide. For us, we never had that, but such a big overload of the system to resolve majority of all of these hard cases. And first come, first serve. Older your case is, you're coming in first. And going towards to only 4-week turnaround in that service to call you back and resolve your issues if you had any. But if you're newly unemployed, don't have an issue, just log on to esd.wa.gov. Anything that you need to know is right there in front of you on that homepage, and just follow the links and fill it out accordingly.
That's great. So basically, no one saw COVID coming. ESD is doing everything they can to add people and add resources to better be able to answer questions in a timely fashion. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, Tiffany can talk a little bit more to how we transition as partners to accommodate some of the changes and to support the influx of supporting these individuals who are unemployed and applying for benefits.
That's great. Thank you. Tiffany, I know you mentioned a couple of them before, but kind of the same same approach. And obviously, I think to Ajsa's point about who is unemployed right now, that we are seeing maybe a broader cross section of demographics, and it's a huge generalization, but generally, the older we all are, technology's harder. And so it sounds like you guys have done in different areas kind of the same approach. So make sure, even though your office is closed, that people can still get a call back in a timely fashion. And anything else that you guys have kind of shifted or pivoted to, address some of those customer service questions?
Yeah, so unemployment insurance is done differently in each state across the nation. And yes, no one was prepared for a pandemic. We, as a system, workforce development system locally, typically do not interact with unemployment insurance. What we do is we focus on reemployment and training opportunities. However, with that said, we did, and are almost to the point where we're going to be shifting back, we did have local team members that when the cry came out, they said, I will work overtime, I will get on online, I will help resolve this. So that was really unique, and it kind of speaks to the contribution of like-minded professionals that want to serve and make a difference. So, that's where we're at. We're still, obviously, if you do look at the numbers, we understand that there's people that are still in an adjudication situation, and our heart goes out to you. And we, though, through our virtual services and those phone numbers I gave, we are here to help. And it's anything and everything. We're focused on employment recovery and training. However, we can help with referrals and supports for food. We completely understand that, Maslow's hierarchy of need, you're not going to be ready to do an interview on an empty stomach. So, let's share the message about the workforce development system, TC Futures, and WorkSource Columbia Basin, and know that there are some very competent professionals that are even experts in veteran services or mature worker services or youth services that can help navigate this for you.
That's great. Just like we talked about the partnerships, it's just great to know. And I think we all have, our team members and everybody else, I think we're all doing everything we can to try to help out. And I think we're all doing different things that we didn't do before COVID hit. So those are great examples. And, to have that community focus, that ultimately everybody's goal is to get people back to work and help them bridge those gaps that, people are going through in their lives because of COVID, for sure. We lost Ajsa. I don't know what happened. She might be coming back in. I know she had some technical difficulties before, but we got about 2 minutes, Tiffany. I just want to say, thank you. And if Ajsa's not able to join us, thank you to Ajsa too. We could probably talk about this for another hour because,
yes,
obviously there's a lot of information there. And, as you get down deeper into the programs, I think, again, as being the new guy, that it's great to see the partnerships. It's great to see the focus on that. There she is.
Hey, yep. Ajsa, welcome back.
Hi, Ajsa. She might be connected, but while she's getting logged back in, Tiffany, do you have any closing remarks that you want to share with anybody you haven't got into yet?
Oh gosh, the thing that's at the forefront of my mind right now is secondary trauma. So with having, we have over, 60 people in our workforce system, and they've been serving our community. There is going to be a statewide partnership initiative that's going to help with that. So I want, everyone to be aware, and as we're participating here, we're essential workers. So, really, community, if you could just, say thank you to your essential workers. If you are an essential worker, take a breather, step away. We know that you're managing your children, your households, sometimes your mature loved ones that you have to go shopping for because they're not able to do so. And I'm almost saying this out loud to myself because I've been working way too many hours these days. We just want to take care of ourselves, that kind of analogy with the airplane and putting the mask on first before you can. So yeah, let's really focus on, self-care. we want to be able to recharge the batteries so that we can continue this work. It's been over 4 months and it's not stopping. We're going to be in this for another 4 months or longer.
That's a great point. Thank you so much for joining us today. And that's a great point to bring up, Tiffany. That's awesome. I should welcome back. Sorry about that, but we're at the end of the program. Do you have some closing remarks? And just in advance, thank you for joining us today. Really great data as always. You're such a great source of information.
You're awesome, Ajsa.
Oh, and I think you might be on mute, or we can't hear you anyway.
No,
Nope.
Not yet.
Nope. Well, I'm sorry to cut you short, but yeah, maybe we can just wave. I'm sorry. And I will say, it's the COVID times we live in, right? We've all experienced technology that comes up in the least convenient time when, we're doing something. I think it's just part of what we do. So totally understandable. Ajsa, thank you so much for your data. And Tiffany, thanks for the great overview of the partnership that you guys represent with Workforce Development Council and all the other partners that you do. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next Friday at 9. Thank you.
Thanks. Be well, everybody.